lot of sense, because in Eagan, I think we make decisions based on what is good for the community. And I think that we haven't been community-based in our decision-making in St. Paul for a number of years, and it's time that we've been lobbing bombs at each other instead of working together. And it's time to stop doing that. And we're going to do the people's work a lot better if we're not lobbing bombs at each other and calling each other names. But if we're telling each other, let's roll up our sleeves and get to work, because the people deserve some action. It looks like you've got one card left, though.
One more. I know there's coyotes and other wildlife in this city, but do you support the wolf hunt?
Yes, I had a coyote run through my backyard in a cul-de-sac. It's pretty shocking. At 10 o'clock in the morning. Do I support the wolf hunt? I'm going to go ahead and say I don't really have enough information to make a good decision about it. I have been, certainly I was surprised when the timber wolves came off the endangered species list, because I was a little kid when they were on. I was a little kid when we were looking at a future without bald eagles, and we were looking at a future without wolves in Minnesota. And now there isn't a day that goes by that I don't see a bald eagle right here in Eagan. So conservation efforts really do matter. And supporting smart conservation that started under Theodore Roosevelt makes a lot of sense. So I don't have enough information about the populations now, and I wasn't part of that legislature that made that decision about the wolf hunt, but I was going to say, that's probably not under your bailiwick.
It's one of the few issues, unfortunately, is not.
Okay, one of the few things that doesn't get covered in the state budget, so that's good. Now I wanted to go back to the exchange question.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Scott raised an interesting point about the
Okay.
exchanges that are going to be taking effect here in Minnesota. And what I've been reading about lately is that it's not, we had Minnesota Care here and we had medical assistance here, and those programs actually had more coverage, and the costs of the premiums were less than what the federal government is doing with this Obamacare and exchanges. So that's,
No,
it's like states like Minnesota that had,
yeah, put your feet up and let's settle in. You're getting into an area that I'm very interested in.
Before you go into the minutia of healthcare, can I ask a quick question while we have the head bean counter here?
Sure.
Because we'll never see him again. Chances are pretty good, unless it's at a traffic light. Is it possible in the state of Minnesota or anywhere to take the tax code and get it on to one sheet of paper?
The tax filing you're talking about?
Yeah, no, the tax laws within the state. Is it possible to get it down to one sheet of paper?
No. I like where you're going, and that is where we're trying to go. We're trying to take out some of the sort of special.
We hear the
pieces in
loopholes
there.
coming out. We hear all that, but is
to
it
get it to one sheet? No, it's an awful lot of economic activity to try and figure out how to state it in one page.
You're talking about when a person fills out their tax return?
Yeah, okay, that's what I was trying to clarify. I would love to, Myron France, the commissioner, would love to. What we're doing is helping a little bit, but we need to have a lot more conversation about simplifying and really just having, again, the broader base, lower rate, and not having so much tax expenditures in our budget.
And is conformity on track?
Yeah, it's passed and signed by the governor.
Yeah.
We're in business.
What was that?
Tax conformity is
Between
just,
federal and state.
The reason I ask that question is because it's very difficult. We're at the point right now in our lives, we've retired, and we're at the point that we're looking at somewhere to move where the taxes are less. And it's very difficult to look out there and say, what do I really pay in tax? We've got some income tax issues. We've got real estate taxes we pay at the gas pump, we pay when we pay our phone bill, we pay the Comcast people, there's taxes wrapped in and hidden and all that stuff. So we really don't know what we pay for tax.
One tax, maybe one tax.
You raise a good point, which is trying to keep things as simple as possible, because fairness is a really elusive concept in taxes. Because whatever somebody else is not paying, that doesn't seem fair to yourself. But it's simplifying it. The tax code has gotten more complicated. The number of tax expenditures has blown up the state forms. So you've got the right point. We're trying to go in that direction. Completely balancing between simplicity and equity is going to be tough, because there's going to be fees on some activities where you're having a user pay. And I think Minnesota's been pretty good about saying, well, if there's a specific, really tightly, closely benefit, to something, you know, that's probably gonna be in a fee. Otherwise, it goes into the general tax revenue. You know, we're trying to make those rates lower, make it as simple as possible. That's the right direction to go. And that's really not a partisan issue. That's something that you're seeing in other states with Republican governors, you're seeing it here with the Democratic governor. You go back to the Reagan tax bill, it is an issue that's the right tax policy.
Is how much of an increase in the Dayton's budget now on taxes? I'm trying to read it, but again, it's kind of confusing. From what I've read in the tables, it's a 7 point on net. You know, there's some of them are getting taxed more and some people are getting taxed less. Each category. But it looked like at the total at the bottom was a net 7.8% increase in taxes in his proposal. Is that right, or am I off on that?
And we kind of jumped ahead, so let's make sure that you get to stay after and talk to the commission about that. 7:30, so we're a little more than half hour after. If people want to stay and talk, that's fine, I'm happy to do that. But I would like to wrap up for folks who are saying, yeah, I gotta go home, put my kids to bed, or whatever it might be, that this is a good start of a conversation. And this is important to start changing the way that we talk to each other as a community and the way that we look at the state spending and revenue. We're trying to get a long-term solution to a long-term problem, and we can't do it without knowing what the values of our community is and values are, and being able to articulate those up in St. Paul. And so these meetings are really helpful. You can continue to email me, you can continue to call my office.
There's the sheets for contact somewhere around the chairs and back there.
Yep, and I'm sure that you'll be able to get in touch with the governor. In fact, the governor has been pretty open about saying if you've got a good idea for cuts you want to see, if you've got a good idea for you going through line by line, if you've got a good idea for ways to make this better without us taking so many tax hits, I want to see it. And I take him at his word because he keeps giving out his home phone number to invite people to talk to him about it. So let's continue the conversation. For those of you who want to go, thanks for being here. And for those of you who want to stay, we can talk exchange and we can talk what do you want to talk about.
I just want to thank you for being honest and saying that, you know, we're not playing this shell game, we're not borrowing from this, we're not selling these bonds. There is a problem. We've kicked the can down the road so many years, and people have just not looked at the long-term goals. We need to look at the long-term goals in politics, and our state is growing, and our needs are growing. And when everyone does better, we all do better. And I believe we're Minnesotans, and I think that the name calling really should quit, and I'm glad to hear that coming out of it.
Thanks. Thank you very much.